Hello YouTubers and fellow hams. Well, I have a new piece of hardware to look at. QRP, low power, 5 watts or less, is something that I play around with a lot. I enjoy. Making contacts is fun enough and thrilling when you're on ham radio. Making contacts with just a tiny bit of power and actually being heard and getting out there is like frosting on the cake. It's an additional level of thrill, and I've always enjoyed that. From the very beginning, when I first got my novice license back in 1983, I think, I was 16. My first radio, it was a Christmas gift from my dad. It was a Heathkit HW8, and this was a 4-band transceiver, CW only, Morse code, low power. I think on 15 meters it only put out about 1.5 watts or so, not a lot. But for that first time that I made a contact in Hawaii from Michigan on 15 meters, I mean, that's a long ways, that's thousands of miles. With 1.5 watts, I was thrilled. I got goosebumps. And I still do when I use really low power. And there's a really low power class called QRPp. I don't know if that's official, but that's how people refer to it, which is very low power. Single transistor oscillator putting out just a few tens of milliwatts or less than 100 milliwatts is like a really low case, and you can still make contacts. And I've built things like that in the past. I have a video where I built a simple crystal controlled CW transmitter. It was only about 140, 150 milliwatts of power, but I made lots of contacts on it. And I enjoy those little things. They're fun to play with. But most of the time they're just crystal controlled oscillators, or they're rock bound or crystal controlled, so they're not very frequency agile. You can put a small trimmer capacitor in series with the crystal and sort of bend its frequency a little bit. But they're not really, they can't tune them around. And I always wanted a very low power transmitter that was a little more agile. Now, ZachTek over in Sweden is a company that makes a whisper beacon amongst a few other things. And I have his whisper beacon and I love it. And I had this idea to take the core hardware of his whisper beacon and turn it into a CW transmitter. And I wrote the software, whole new software load for that hardware, and started putting it together. Ran into problems with my fading ability to solder fine points, and I never could quite get my version of it built. But I collaborated with Harry over at ZachTek, and he was excited about it, and he did a version using my software, his basic design, and we extended it. We threw some ideas back and forth, and he extended it to be 3 bands. So I got a box. The final version is out of ZachTek's version of the CWflea. Let's go open the box. I got a box from Sweden, from ZachTek, or www.zachtech.com. So this is the hopefully final version of Harry's CWflea. Made it all the way here from Sweden in just a few days. He sent me a note. Kevin, here is version 1.3 of the CWflea transmitter. Have fun, Harry. Thank you, Harry. Swedish packing paper. And we have packages. Ooh, look at this. He sent me, oh yeah, that's right. He sent me 3 of them. And, okay, yeah, what do we got here? Oh, he sent me power connectors. Thanks, Harry. Oh, that looks nice. Look at that beautiful thing. open source hardware logo, CWflea logo. Harry, CWflea transmitter by KB9RLW and SM7PNV. Version 1, revision 3. Should have put your call sign first, Harry. This is your hardware design. It is an open hardware design. It's an open source software. A completely open project. You can just download the source files and put it together yourself. And I think Harry is going to be selling a few populated boards, although the AT Mega microcontroller, which is right here, is it used to be $6 for him, parts cost. Now it's $60, so he's looking to switch that out to an ESP microcontroller. The chip shortage is really hitting everybody hard. This is a different BNC connector than on the early prototypes. So yeah, this is the CWflea. It's a very low power, ultra low power CW transmitter. This is using all modern components though. So this is something that someone that tinkers around with modern stuff could build. And it puts out around 300 to 400 milliwatts, and it covers 40 meters, 30 meters, and 20 meters. And just a quick go over on what the board is. Hopefully my camera will focus. So, what do we have here? 5-volt regulator. This can run directly off of 8 to 12 or 8 to 14, 16 volts, something like that, whatever the 7805 can handle. And then that gives 5 volts for the rest of the board. It would probably be possible to modify the circuit, leave out the regulator, and just run right off of USB voltage. So it could be modified to run directly off USB. What do we got? So that's the 5-volt regulator. That's a serial interface chip. That's the microcontroller. Those are line drivers, which are actually being used as the amplifier. This couples the output over to the filter networks, and there are 2 of them. One for 40 meters, the other for 30 and 20 meters. This relay switches between the filter networks. This is the transmit-receive relay. Transmit-receive switching is done on the board itself. You can do that externally if you want, but this can make it automated for you. So your antenna goes here. Never, ever, ever hook your receiver up to that. That would blow your receiver. This is the antenna output, and this SMA jack then goes to your receiver. And this relay will do the transmit-receive switching. When you key down, it switches the antenna over to the power output section. And when you're not transmitting, it switches the antenna directly over to the receiver. This relay also grounds the receiver output when you go into transmit mode to protect your receiver. However, there's still enough RF that the receiver can hear it, so the receiver becomes your side tone. Tuning is unique. I wanted to simplify the idea behind the transmitter, so these are the tuning buttons, tune up and tune down. This is the band select button over here. What you do is you tune your receiver to where you want to operate. Unlike the early crystal oscillator transmitters I built, this is agile. It can move around in a frequency range that you define in the software. And by default, it covers the lower CW portions of the bands, 40, 30, and 20 meters. So anyway, you tune your receiver to where you want to operate, and then you press and hold one of these tuning buttons. And what happens is it turns on the VFO, but not the transmit section. It just turns on the VFO, and the receiver will hear the VFO. So you hold this down, and the VFO will turn on and start sweeping up the band. And when you hear it pass on your receiver, you hear that whoop. You release the button, and then just start tapping the other button, and it'll move slowly until you bring it to where you want it. So if you're going to answer somebody's CQ, you would move it around until your tone matches their tone, and then you're tuned into them. So it's pretty straightforward. I think it's easy to use once you play around with it, and we'll show you in the demo. And I 3D printed a case for it with little extensions here for the push buttons, and this should just slip right in here. I have to sort of angle it so that those buttons don't fall out. I'm getting caught on the threads on the, there we go. Yeah, it drops right in. Get it past the push buttons. There we go. And so that sits in there. You can see all the ports line up with the holes, and then these pegs on the lid will press down against the board and hold it in there. And this should snap fit. All right, there we go. And then these little extensions hit the buttons. Band indicator lights, key input, antenna, receiver, USB, power, nothing. And the logo's embossed in the case. So there we go. Let's hook it up and let's make some contacts with it. So here's a typical kind of setup. You have some kind of receiver. I'm using the Malahit here. And I've got the CWflea hooked up right here. Behind it, there's a power bank. It's a USB power bank, which I'm using to power both the receiver and the transmitter. And we're hooked up to my Elk Pack end-fed half wave, which is cut for 40 meters and covers 40, 20, 15, 10, and 6 meters. Right now we're on 40 meters, 70.060. I don't know if you can see that screen or not. I'll do that, then you can see it better. Now the Malahit receiver is nice because it has a waterfall and spectrum display, so we'll be able to see tuning the radio. You can also see some of the shortcomings of the Malahit. When there's strong signals anywhere in the waterfall, even though I'm tuned right here, they'll affect the AGC and the whole thing will shift. But anyway, so if I was going to call CQ on a frequency like 7.06, I would bring the transmitter down, and we're going to hit one of the tuning buttons. I'm going to hit the tuning down button. We'll actually see it on the waterfall. So watch for the waterfall. You'll see a spike appear. Whoa, are we on? No, it helps if I turn it on. There we go. Did you see the little lights here flicker? Alright, so there's a green light right there. See it? That indicates we're on the 40 meter band. And now I will hit the tuning down button and watch the waterfall. There it is. And it's going up instead of down. Harry, the buttons are backwards. I'll have to get into the software. So now, right there. So what that did was turn down the VFO. It did not put any power out. It just turned on the VFO and we could hear it on the receiver. So I just tuned to where I'm at. And now I've got my key here. And if I key down, and that's showing a little over 10/9. And remember, that relay is grounding the receiver output. So even with the receiver output grounded, there's enough RF getting picked up just by the coax and just in the air from the nearby transmitter that the receiver can hear it. So it becomes our side tone. Since I'm hooked to the antenna, I went ahead and ID'd. So that's how the tuning works. If I was going to try to answer somebody, let's oh, stupid thing. I'm going to narrow the filter. That's better. Hey, somebody calling CQ. So let's bring the signal down, the transmitter down to it. So there I'm pretty close to matched on him. There we go. That's about where he was. So it, all right. He's a little too fast for me, but I'll give it a try. Okay, do it again, dude. I was used to people sending in a certain format, and he just sent CQ once and then sent his call. Oh, somebody's answering him. He got me. Five 559. Thanks. All right. So that was WB5 USB. And let's look him up and see where he's at. The 5's probably Texas. WB5 USB. That's George in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I'll put that up on the map with the distance. And I think he is doing a Parks on the Air. So I don't know what park he's in, but I'll put his regular information in my log. I guess I should note the time, huh? 16:45. Since I know how YouTube comments work, and I know that some people were looking at that Malahit demo and seeing all the little spikes popping up in the waterfall when I transmitted, that's the Malahit. And to prove it, I have the flea hooked up to my ICOM 705. So I'm going to tune it. Oh, let's go to CW mode. Turn that up so you can hear it. See how quick and easy that tuning works? Okay, I'm going to transmit. See that? Alright, somebody's going to want to know about signal purity. I have the scope hooked up. Got my dummy load coming in over here, and the CWflea is plugged in. And I'm going to key down. Look at that nice, pretty sine wave. So I've made a bunch of contacts on it. One note on QRP operating with CW. Calling CQ is never very productive. You're going to sound weak to stations that might stumble across you. And the general behavior of people when they're tuning around is if they hear a really weak station calling CQ, they might not answer it because in their mind they might think, well, propagation isn't that great to that guy. I can barely hear him. He won't be able to hear me, and they just won't even answer. But answering CQs is far more productive. That's definitely the way to do it, and that's the way that I generally operate when I'm using low power. Is I'll tune around and I'll find somebody calling CQ, and I'll answer them. And I'm always surprised when they come back to me. It happens quite often. They're more likely to answer a CQ, or to answer you if you're answering their CQ. Psychological, I'm sure, but it's definitely the more productive way to operate. Now, Harry has his web page up. He's got the board complete, and he is selling them. Here's the web page on the CWflea on his site. And like I said, the link will be in the description below. And I see here that he is selling it for a price of $63, which is reasonable. Now, I designed a quick and easy 3D printed case for the transmitter, as you probably noticed in the demo segment. And I will put those files up on Thingiverse, and you can, that link will be down in the description as well. And if you have a 3D printer, you can 3D print your own case. The board kind of slides in there. It's not really secured, but the pegs from the lid that snap fit on kind of hold the board in place. But you could drill, I didn't have any really, really small screws to get through the holes in that board, so I didn't screw mount it, but you could, drill a couple of little holes and just put a couple of screws through to hold the board in place, and that case would work out fine. Or you could just do your own case. I might even do a better case for it down the road. This one was just simple and utilitarian, but it works. Also, Harry was kind enough to send me 2 extra boards. So I have 2 complete CWflea, ZachTek CWfleas, and I'm going to be giving those away. So one of them is going to go to my Patreons. I'll be doing that giveaway over on the Patreon page. And any of my Patreon guys, go and find that post and comment if you want to be entered in the drawing. Any CW ops that are seeing this video that want to enter for a drawing on this one, go down in the comments and comment with entry and say that you want to be entered in the drawing. And I guess I'll collect entries for a little while, maybe a couple of weeks. I don't know what date I'll do the giveaway, but we'll 2 or 3 weeks. We'll see how it goes. It depends on how fast the entries come in, how many we get. So I'll be giving away 2 CWfleas, one to my Patreons and one to you guys here on YouTube. And I'll probably get the 3D printer out and 3D print a couple of cases, so you'll get it in a case instead of just the raw board. That's the ZachTek CWflea QRPp 3-band transmitter. It works pretty darn well. I'm happy with it. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. And you can couple it with just about any receiver that you might have that can receive single sideband or CW. I was using it with the Malahit, which is not really a very clean receiver, and that could be software related. I don't know. The one that got sent to me was one of the clones. So I'm sure that the original creator's version of the Malahit is much, much, much better. But it works. The flea transmitter can be coupled with any receiver. And the documentation will say it. I figure I should say the warning as well myself, just because somebody out there is bound to make the mistake. Never, ever, ever, ever hook your receiver to the antenna output of the flea. Transmitting into your receiver will damage your receiver. It does the transmit-receive switching for you, as we saw, so you can just couple it with just about any receiver that you want and have a complete low-power station. Okay, well, that's the CWflea from ZachTek, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think it turned out great. It was fun collaborating with Harry on it, and we've got a little toy to play with. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, click to subscribe. Join us on the Facebook channel for discussion about the videos. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please click to support me on my Patreon page.